Hi everybody, my name is Gabby Simone. I'm the author of I Wish I Knew It Before Going to College. This is the book. And today, thank you for viewing this presentation and being a part of this discussion. Today we're going to talk about some things that you can start doing as a high school senior that will help you with your freshman year of college and actually all 4 years of college. So it's some advice for the high school senior. Before I jump into the presentation, I do want to just again say that I'm the author of I Wish I Knew It Before Going to College, and also there's a new book out called I Wish I Knew It Before Sending My Child to College. Both books are a collection of letters and stories based on what hundreds of college students have said, and the one for parents is what hundreds of college parents have said. And today, if you send me an email, anybody who views this presentation, send me an email to gabrielle.simone@gmail.com and I'll send you a free copy. I'll get it right in the mail for you. So if you're viewing this live, feel free to send me an email now or after the presentation and just put in the subject line free copy and I'll get one in the mail for you. And anybody who watches this at any time, even after this live presentation, same thing, just send me an email, put free copy in the subject line, and I'll send you a free copy of I Wish I Knew It Before Going to College. And again, it's a really cool collection of letters and stories, all based on what hundreds of college students have said about their experience. And it's everything from the classroom and academics to the social life and relationships and all that fun stuff that comes along with college. So today we're going to talk about some common mistakes. I don't know if you can see this. But today we'll talk about some common mistakes that high school students make and how to fix them. We'll focus on 3 things. And those 3 things are academics, your social life, and confusing your priorities. Sometimes I think high school seniors get their priorities all mixed up. And with college being right around the corner, it's one of those things that you should get in line. So let's start with some academics. And also, as I give this presentation, for those of you who are on live, feel free to ask questions at any point throughout the presentation. If you want to stop me, I'll ask some questions. And I've focused on some of the bigger points that might be of interest to you. I won't bore you with all the fun, exciting points that I can bore you with. I'll hit some of the bigger things that I think you should focus on. So we won't take up the whole hour, but we do have an hour of time. So if you have some questions, please feel free, just shoot me a question and we can have a little discussion about it. So first off, in talking about academics, I think one of the biggest things, I taught a freshman experience course a couple of times to college freshmen, and I asked them often, what was the hardest transition for you when you got to college? And one of the top things was that their study habits were not up to par for college. And I'm sure there's some of you who right now don't have to study. You're kind of a B plus A student in high school. I was one of them who I never really studied. Teachers would give work and I would do my homework and I would pay attention in class, and the night before a test I'd probably glance over my notes, but I was one of those people who work came pretty easily to me in high school. And it kind of bit me in the butt when I got into college, because in college you have to study. And you might know people who say, oh, I don't study, I cram the night before, but that doesn't work. Some of your exams, for example, when you get into college, if you, for example, have to take an anatomy class, regulating the human body, they're not going to give you a picture of the human body and say, okay, what is every muscle, what is every bone, right? And you could just memorize it. What they'll do instead is say, tell me what muscles and what bones you use to lift up a pen. So then you have to be able to take what you've learned and use it in content. You can't just spit back and memorize and spit back the answers. So one of the hardest things that people have is that they're A students in high school, they get to college, they don't really know how to study. And to be honest, it took me probably not until my sophomore year that I finally would sit down after class, and the recommended questions in the back of the textbook that the professors always tell you to do, but you never really do, I started doing them. And after class, I'd sit down and I'd go over what we learned in class, right? And this was weeks before the test. And then by the time the test came, when I sat down to study, I had all of my notes there, and it was just a review. It wasn't that I was cramming. And I ask those of you who are watching, if do you really know how to study? Or do you just sit down, memorize as much as you can memorize the day before the test, and then take the test and lose everything that you've just studied? So one of the things is that you should learn how to study. And what I would suggest is take a topic, one class that you're in right now. And whenever you take notes in class, at the end of the day when you go home, just sit down for even 15 minutes and read over what notes you took in class, or take a minute to highlight part of your notes, or do some questions in the back of the book. Because the more that you do that, by the time that the test comes, when you sit down to study, it's just going to be a review. So you're not having to relearn everything. And the other thing is, when you do sit down and start looking over the notes that you took in class, you might come across a question and say, oh, I didn't really get that. And then the next day when you go to class, you ask your teacher, hey, can you go over this again? And you're just, over time, retaining all this information. And some of you will probably think this is crazy and say, no, I'm not doing that. But that's one of the hardest things when you get to college, is that people don't know how to study. And surprisingly, you might see that some of your friends, and another example, my brother wasn't the best student in high school, but when he got to college, he was a great student. Because from day one, he always had to study when he was in high school. So from day one of college, he would get his work and he knew how to study, and he even, he had techniques on using different colored highlighters for different topics, and it helped him. So that's one of the things. Another thing academically that is probably the demise of most college students is procrastinating. Procrastinating in college is on a whole other level than procrastinating in high school. You have so much free time in college. In fact, when you're on a college campus, if you're living there, you're technically in class only 27% of the time that you're actually on campus. So when you're living there and you're hanging out with your friends and you're going to the gym or you're keeping yourself busy, of your entire day, you're only in class about 27% of your time. So you have all this other time to do other things. Why would you study, right? Why would you do your homework? You might as well go to the gym or go to the game room and play games with your friends, or watch a movie, or just hang out. So it's really easy to procrastinate in college. And this kind of goes back to the studying thing, in terms of doing your work last minute. If you are given a paper to do, one of the best things that you can do is just start it, right? It's very daunting when a professor says, there's a 10-page paper that's due in 3 weeks. Right, and the thought of 10 pages is really daunting, and people kind of push it off, and I'll do it later. The best thing that you can do, and try this now in one of your English classes or your history classes if you have to do papers, is if the professor or your teacher gives you a topic to write about, go home and do an outline. And just take notes, like, okay, when I sit down to do this, I'm going to write about this, I want to write about this. And as you're doing it, you'll come up with sentences, you'll come up with ideas that you want to put together, and just form an outline. That's not daunting, right? That will take you 15 minutes to do. And then the next week, when you finally feel like sitting down and say, oh, I should work on that paper again, now when you open up your outline, you already have topics there. You already have things that you can think back to and say, oh yeah, I remember that I wanted to write about that. Or, oh, this is what I want my opening to be. And that over time will build. So you're not waiting until the last minute to write a 10-page paper and to stay up all night. And the other thing I suggest you do is, even though I'm saying do it kind of in blocks, right? So one day you start an outline, and then the next day you might work on your opening, or the next day you might research something for your paper. I think that's okay. What I don't think is okay is sitting down to write your paper and then write one paragraph and then check Facebook or go on Twitter or go on Instagram and then write a paragraph, and then, because it becomes very choppy. So, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I do that, right? I can't sit down and just write one whole paper. It becomes choppy and you lose sight of things, and you are thinking about other things than what the paper is. So I suggest that you take at least a half hour of time to sit down, start it, And then when you're done, you're getting kind of bored of it or kind of tired of it, you can't think of what to write next, save it and then come back to it in a week or come back to it in a couple of days. So that the night before the paper is due, you can then just sit down and read through your paper. You don't have to sit down and write a 10-page paper. So that's one way to avoid procrastinating. Another way to avoid it, and some of you might be really good at it now, is to schedule study time or schedule homework time. And for those of you who are seniors or who are in high school right now, you probably have a study hall or you have a time during your day where you are required to be somewhere to be doing work. Study hall was the best. It was 50 minutes, at least my high school. I think we were 50 minutes or 42 minutes was each of our classes in high school. And so I had a study hall that I had to go to. I had to sit down. The only thing I could do was do homework or read. So it was there. In college, you don't, when you schedule your classes in college, you won't schedule study hall. There's no such thing as scheduling study hall. Unless you're an athlete. The athletes, that's another story. The athletes in college do have scheduled time that they have to study. But everybody else, there's no class that you'll schedule. So what I suggest is that, and if you don't do this in high school, try and fit it in, just in your calendar, right, in your schedule of courses, take an hour that says library. I used to do this all the time in college, and it was the best thing I ever did. And I'd schedule an hour of time that said library. So from 11 to 12 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'd go to the library. And what this helped me do is I'd get to the library, I'd sit down and say, okay, what do I have to work on? And I knew that I would be there for an hour. So it wasn't like, oh, I have to be here forever to get work done. This was my hour to do as much as I could do. And then if I was sort of on a roll, I would just stay there for extra time and do it. But if I said, okay, I need a break, I would just finish putting in my hour of study time, and then I would go back to my room. And when I got to my room, I could relax. I didn't think about the work that I had to do because I knew that the next day I had another hour that I would go and focus on the homework. So that's one way to avoid procrastinating. It's one way to keep you on schedule. So last point about academics that a lot of high school seniors have, or juniors who are becoming seniors, are what classes to take. Do I take AP classes? Do I take classes for college credit? And my suggestion is, there's a couple things. So right now I work at a school of medicine, and for the past 3 years, I worked in college admissions. And so I used to review applications and meet with high school students frequently, every day, if not every other day, and talk about this. So one of the things that we did when we read applications was look for the challenging courses. What I didn't like to see was a student who was a CB student, so they were a good student, but they weren't getting all A's, and then their senior year they had 3 AP classes. And I said, well, why would you take AP classes? The point of AP classes are for students who are getting A's, and honors classes are easy for them, and they want to challenge themselves their senior year. And so I asked this one student, I said, why are you taking all these AP classes? What? He said, well, I need them for college. So, well, having AP classes on your transcript looks good, but having AP classes when you're getting F's and D's in them does not look good. So don't take AP classes just because they look good on your transcript. They only look good on your transcript if you can get B's or A's in them. So that's my first suggestion. If you are kind of on the fence and you're thinking, should I take them, should I not take them, one thing that you can do, this is sort of a side note, but if you have a college that you definitely want to go to, right, it's your dream school, you want to go there, call their admissions office. This is totally okay. Call their admissions office and say, hey, I'm thinking about scheduling an AP bio versus a general anatomy and physiology course. Or I want to take an AP history. I can take an AP history, or I can take a government course. What should I take? The admissions counselors will tell you. So if you have a first choice school, call their office, say, hey, can I talk to an admissions counselor, and let them know that you're interested in their school and you're scheduling your classes, and they'll be honest with you and suggest courses to take. So that's definitely something you can do. The other thing, though, is if you're kind of on the fence about doing one, if you think you can handle it, I would say take an AP course. I scheduled one my senior year of high school, and I found it to be really challenging, and I ended up dropping the course. I said, I don't want to take this. I'm in high school. I don't need to take this. But looking back on it, the AP course that I was taking my senior year of high school was very similar to the way that my college courses were taught. I mean, that's kind of the point of an AP course. But it was very similar, and I wish I had stuck with it because I think I would have learned a lot more really good study habits from the course. And had I taken the AP exam at the end of the year, many schools will give you credit if you do well on the AP exam. So a lot of schools, as long as you get a 4 or a 5, that's pretty much, you'll get credit for it. A lot of schools, even if you get a 3 on some of the exams, like typically English and history, if you get a 3 on the exam, this college will give you college credit for that. And if any of you are in AP courses now or thinking about taking them, I know at my school we could take the course, but we didn't have to take the exam. I think now a lot of high schools, they make you take the exam. But if you have the option to take it, study for it and take the exam. So you'll get 3 credits. That's the equivalent of 1 college class. You'll get that 1 college class already when you come into college. That can make a huge difference. So the days that you don't feel like studying for those AP classes or the AP exam, study. And here's why. A couple things. At the school that I went to, if the amount of credits that you had determined when you could schedule for classes. Okay, so not all freshmen will schedule classes at the same time. Some schools do it in alphabetical order by last name. The school that I went to, the first group of people got to schedule classes if they had more credits already. So if this makes sense to you. When I came in, I had college credits from a high school class that I took that I could get college credit for, and I got college credit for it as a high school senior. So when I started my freshman year, I technically already had 3 college credits. This is something that you can get by doing well in the AP exams. So I had 3 college credits, so I was one of the first people to be allowed to schedule my classes my freshman year. And I was always 3 credits ahead of most classmates, so my sophomore year, I got to schedule classes first, just by getting that 1 college credit in high school. And so what's nice about that is I got all the best times. All the classes that I wanted were open and available, and I wasn't stuck with all 8 a.m. classes. I wasn't stuck with all night classes. I was able to take the classes that I wanted to, and I got the best professors too. So that's one thing. Another reason that it's good, and the college credit that I got in high school, it was one of those classes, and I don't know if your schools offer it, but it was one of those classes where you had to pay like $175 for the class, which in high school I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money to take a high school class. However, for $175, I got 3 college credits from a community college. So when I went to college and actually found out that just one credit at my school was like $600 for 1 credit, I said, yeah, I'm happy I did that $175 for 3 credits. So if you have classes that you can take in high school at a community college and you think that you can keep up in them and get C pluses at the minimum, take them and do well on them, because anything that you can get college credit for will put you ahead of the game when you enter your freshman year. Okay, any questions on academics? I had fun with that. So the next thing I want to talk about is the social part of high school, and things that you should focus on your senior year that can also help you when you get to college and can help you get into college. So one of the things, and one of the hardest things that college students have trouble with, is time management, is making their schedule. And if you think about your schedule now, many of you probably have a pretty structured schedule. So you wake up, your alarm clock goes off, or your mom or dad or your brother or sister wakes you up, and then you start school at a certain time, you take your classes at certain times, you either play a sport after school, or you babysit, or you work, or you have a club meeting, then you come home, then you study, then you have dinner, right? It's all kind of scheduled for you. And then the next day you wake up and it's the same thing. So your day's scheduled. Now imagine being put in a place like college where the only thing that you have to do during the day is go to class for 2 hours or 3 hours. And some of you might think, well, that's great, that's awesome. But in addition to that, you have to find time to eat, you have to find time to stay healthy and work out. I'm a huge advocate of that. So I always say, find time to get some exercise. You need to study, you need to do laundry, you need to do your homework. So there's things that you have to do that you need to schedule. And that's one of the hardest things that college students find to be troubling when they get to college, is that they don't know how to schedule their time, and their time's all over the place, and they find themselves procrastinating. They find themselves studying the night before. So I still like hard copy things in terms of like a calendar or a planner. Get one. It's the best thing that you can do for yourself. I am kind of a nerd, so I have fun scheduling things and fun scheduling my calendar and writing in when I have certain things. If you don't do that, and if right now you're watching this and you're going, no way am I getting a calendar, I'll tell you right now that you're the first person who I would say would struggle with time management. So if you find yourself saying, oh, I don't need a calendar, I don't want to do that, I can't keep up with it, then go get a planner because you need one. Was that kind of harsh? But seriously, the your schedule is something that's challenging to figure out in college. And so one way to work on that now, and many of you, I don't know if this is true for all of you, but if you get woken up by a brother or a sister, or your mom or your dad or your grandma or grandpa, the first thing that you can do is try and wake up on your own. I know it sounds kind of silly, but that's something you're going to have to do in college. No one's going to call you to wake you up. No one's going to come over and push you in your bed and say, good morning, wake up, breakfast is downstairs. You have to wake up on your own. So try and take that ownership right now. I mean, that's one way that you're sort of growing up and becoming an adult, is taking ownership of your time. So if you can do that, try and schedule that in. The other thing too, in terms of your schedule, kind of like what I was saying before, try and schedule time to do homework. So if you have a study hall, don't just sit in study hall and talk to your friends. Use that time to get work done. And the benefit of this is that as weeks go by, you're going to say, wow, I'm a lot less stressed because I know what I'm doing in class. I'm a lot less stressed because I know what's on the test. I'm ready for the test. When I go to study, it's just a review for me. Or when I have to hand in a paper tomorrow or the next day, I can look at my computer and say, oh, well, it's done already. So all that stress is going to be taken away. The other thing about the social side of things in high school, there might be some of you right now who are juniors going into your senior year, and you're thinking about college, and you're thinking, wow, I know that colleges like strong academics, but I also know that they want community service and they want to see other activities on my resume or on my college application, and I don't have any activities, right? Are there some of you who are like, well, I haven't done anything, I really need to get involved my senior year? Again, back to my admissions world of reading applications, there's the one thing that I liked to see the most was a student who their senior year got involved in one activity and actually did something in it. And what I mean by that is, when I got an application and opened the extracurricular section of the application and saw that it was all filled in, I said, oh, this is cool, this student's really involved. But then I noticed that they did 10 different things for just their senior year. So I'm thinking, okay, this person literally just joined every club, probably went to one club meeting, and then put on their application, oh, I was in the community service club, and I was in the Spanish club, or I was in. They just put these things on their applications, and I noticed that they're in it just for their senior year. And I'm not an idiot. It's not. I know that you just joined it just so it can be on your application, and that doesn't look good. So what I suggest is that as a senior, pick one club that you want to be a part of, or find a group on campus that does things and join them, and then do something meaningful in the club. So if I see somebody who has a ton of things on their extracurriculars, but they've only done it for their senior year, I know, and they didn't really do anything. However, if I saw a student who joined something their senior year and then they wrote maybe a passage about it, or they sent in another document to add to their application that said, I joined the community service club for my senior year, I wanted to get involved, and I helped plan this event, this event, and this event. We raised X amount of dollars. I saw that they actually took some ownership of what they wanted to do, and they didn't just join a club to join a club. They joined it and actually did something effective in it, and they actually got involved, because that's what colleges want. They don't want people who are going to come to their college and just go through the motions and join a bunch of clubs and say, oh yeah, I'm involved. They want people who will make a difference on their campus and who will be actively involved. So if you are one of those people, to get back to my point, if you're one of those people who don't have anything on your extracurriculars and you're thinking your senior year, what do I do? It's okay. It happens. It's okay. But what I suggest is, rather than joining every single club at your high school, join one or two and do something meaningful in the club, or do something effective, because that will look good on your application. And if you go for your college interviews, right, your admissions interviews, I interviewed hundreds of students. And when I would get their application, say, oh, I see that you're part of this club and this club, what do you do? And they said, oh, we meet once a week and we talk about what was happening in the media, and it's just kind of a place for us to talk. I wasn't totally impressed. But by the student who came and said, I joined the Interact Club, which is a community service club, my senior year, and I got involved and I helped plan this event and this event. I mean, that looks really cool. That looks a lot better. So that's sort of my advice for you on that end. Now, the other thing, in terms of your priorities, and this kind of sort of encompasses everything, even though you get an acceptance letter when you're in high school, right? You get acceptances to college, and even if you pick a school that you want to go to and you send a deposit, so you're going there, colleges technically are able to revoke any acceptances up until the first day of your freshman year. So your acceptance is actually contingent upon you graduating high school, right? Because if you get accepted and then, you don't graduate, obviously you can't go. But I've seen it before that schools have revoked people's acceptances because their academics totally plummeted. So you were a great student the first half of the year, and then the second half of the year, all of your grades just dipped because you stopped going to class and you could care less because you were in college. And then at the end of the year, your guidance counselor or your school will send the college that you're going to your final transcript. And I've seen it before that if academics fall, they'll either revoke your admissions or take away your scholarship if you've been given a scholarship. It's happened. So be careful of how much you slack off in class during your senior year. And the other thing is, be careful of the social aspect of college or of high school. Everything is on the media these days, right? Or on social media, it's on the web. Be careful of the pictures that are posted of you online and things that you post online, because who knows where they go. Even if you delete them, they might be saved online somewhere. And one piece of advice that I always say is, before you write something on the internet or before you post a picture, ask yourself if you would be comfortable with it being on the front page of the New York Times. And if you post something, you say, yeah, you know what, I don't really care if it's on the front page of the New York Times, then post away. But if you hesitate and think, do I really want all of my friends to see this, or my parents, or teachers, or future professors, that's one thing that you need to ask yourself. And it's putting things on the web that don't put you in a great light, or showing something that's illegal, that also can be used against you for college admissions. And I've seen that before too. This is a terrible story, but somebody sent a picture of a friend of theirs who I guess they didn't really like to their friend's college admissions office, and it was not a great picture of them, and it caused a big issue, and they contacted the student and they revoked his admissions. So this stuff, when it gets on the web, can be negative in many cases. So be careful of what you're doing on your social time as well, because if you get in trouble with the school or if you get in trouble with the law, the college has to know. So that can mess up some things. I found this quote online and I really liked it. It says, "We have a strategic plan. It's called doing things." So the last part of the presentation is about planning. So you're in high school, college is around the corner. Some of you might be nervous for it. And let me reassure you, if there are any of you who are thinking college is going to be so hard and I'm not going to make any friends, or the academics, I'm not going to be able to do anything but study, that's not true. You will have a life in college. You can have a life in college. And for those of you who are not worried about time management or procrastinating because you say, oh, I'm going to study all the time, you're one of those people also, like I said before, who actually you need to work on your time management, because if you're studying 24/7, you're going to burn yourself out. You're also going to miss opportunities. There's a lot more to college than academics. Remember that always. Focus on your academics, but my college experience, this much of it, if you can get in camera, this much of it was academics, and then this much of it was the social aspect, the internships, the involvement, the clubs that I was a part of. So when you go to college, keep in mind that at the end of your 4 years, when you have your resume that you'll hand to an employer to get a job or get an internship, on your resume, your major and your GPA is one line of your resume, right? There's a whole lot of room on that piece of paper that you have to fill in. And that's what you'll do in college. So one way to plan, and because a lot of people, I'm sure you guys hear this all the time, oh, are you planning for college? Are you ready for college? What are you thinking? It's kind of hard because you're thinking, well, how do I plan? What do I do? So here's a couple things that as a freshman you can do to get ahead when you get into college. The first thing that I suggest is, once you take your classes, find one professor that you're comfortable to meet with, and you'll probably be uncomfortable at first, but pick one professor that you think you could sit with and have a conversation with, and email him or her and say, hi, I'm a student, I'm a freshman in one of your classes, can we meet and talk? I know it sounds kind of scary, but they're humans also, they're people also, and meet with them. They'll probably say yes, and if they do say no, pick another professor, somebody else, but meet with them, even if it's for 15 minutes, and say, I'm a freshman here, and I'm just trying to find ways to get involved, and say, what's one of the coolest things that one of your students have done, or what's a really, really interesting experience that one of your former students have done. Because I guarantee they'll remember, and they'll say, oh, I had a student who traveled to Nicaragua during their spring break to help build schools. True story, this really happens. Or I had a student who did an internship in Florida, and they got everything paid for, and they got to meet this celebrity and that celebrity, and they got a trip to Arizona. So they're going to tell you the cool things that their students have done, and that's one way that you think, all right, there's a goal. I've set a goal for myself. That's what I want to do. So the more people that you talk to who work on a college campus, the more that they'll be able to tell you what other students have done, and that's one way to set goals for yourself. I remember my freshman year, I met a girl who was the same major as me, and she was telling me about an internship that she was doing, and the company was paying her a lot of money, and the company was sending her to Arizona for this 4-day all-inclusive conference. And she was telling me about that, and my freshman year is when she told me that, and I said, wow, that's really cool. So right off the bat, freshman year, that was my goal. I said, whatever she did, I want to do that. And so that's something that I was able to work towards, and eventually I did it during my junior year of college. So talk to as many people as you can, if it's upperclassmen or if it's professors, and don't just say, hi, I'm really excited to be here, thanks for teaching. No, say, look, I'm looking to get involved. What opportunities can you tell me about, or what opportunities have former students of yours done? And they'll tell you. And that's one quick way that you can start setting goals for yourself your freshman year. So that's your one plan. You don't have to worry about anything else. But if you do have questions about anything, or if there are things that come up that you're a little nervous about and maybe don't want to ask right here on camera, that's fine. You can just send me an email. I'm willing to talk about anything. I can give you a heads up on stuff. And remember, if you send me an email today at gabrielle.simone, hold on, that's something else should be coming up. I don't know where it is. Well, it's Gabrielle, Gabbriel, .simone, SIMONE, at gmail.com, and say free copy in the subject line. I will send you a free copy of my book, I Wish I Knew It Before Going to College. It's a collection of letters and stories, all based on what hundreds of college students have said, everything from academics to professors picking classes, relationships, the social scene, partying. It's from both guys' perspectives and girls' perspectives. So it's a quick read, and if you're interested, send me an email and I will put one in the mail for you and have it sent. And so if nobody has any questions, thank you so much for listening, and feel free to email me at any point if you do have questions or if you think of things, if you're having some troubles. The other thing that we didn't talk about today, which I enjoy talking about, but it wasn't the topic today, is just the college search process. So if you are a senior right now, or if you're a junior right now in high school and you're starting the high school, the search for colleges during summer or during the beginning of your senior year, and you have some questions about it, just send me an email. I'll help you. There are some really good tips that I can give about how to approach counselors and really how to get into the school that you want to get into. It's all kind of a game. So I can give you the inside scoop on that. Or if you're applying to colleges or looking at schools and you want somebody on your behalf to check on your file or to make sure that things are going along, I know the questions to ask. I can either give you the questions that you should be asking counselors, but I also love to help, so I would be more than happy to call as a representative for you and just say, hey, how's it going with their application? That's kind of how the world of admissions works. So thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your high school senior year and the beginning of your freshman year of college. Bye-bye.